Snip me once. Snip me twice. Come on, baby, baby. Snip me deadly. How do, gang? Bad Player 03 here, and welcome to another Bad Players WoW Vlog Snippet. Today I wanted to touch on the speculation, curiosity, maybe excitement over Blizzard's unannounced feature that is supposed to be, well, hopefully, going to be added in the next patch, which, if all things go as planned, I would expect will probably hit the PTR in the next month, and if all goes well, maybe we'll get to see what it is. So I wanted to do a little speculation and talk a little bit about what maybe this feature might be. The first off, we only had a couple of really good clues that kind of gave us some idea. Ghostcrawler had originally said, well, you know how people are always talking about being able to run old content and that sort of thing? Well, maybe it's got something related to that. And of course, that got us thinking, old content. And secondly, another comment, I'm not sure who had said it, but that it would allow, you give players a lot more content to run. And also that kind of plays into that same idea too. Now, in the recent interview that was conducted, talking about the future, basically what was said was the big unannounced feature will have a cool impact, not major or profound, but cool impact on the game, and something that they've been talking about for a long time. So those two things together, force us to speculate as to what it might be. Now, first off, old content, lost to run. Well, Blizzard's got all this old stuff from patches and expansions and everything going back years and, well, what is it? Almost getting close to eight years, I believe, right? That players may want to run, and of course, maybe they do. Like myself, I do a little bit of soloing every now and again just to see what it was like, but it's not really the same, or it doesn't really give you a feel of what it might have been like, back then. And so, of course, the ability to go back into, well, maybe even into organized level could also be part of that as well. Like the PTR or the LFR allows us to form groups randomly to run the old content in teams rather than solo it anyways. So I mean, maybe it could be something to do with that, maybe some kind of grouping or LFR to old raids, LFOR perhaps, as somebody said on the forums, looking for old raids. That's a possibility. Although, do the old raids really need organized, or well, a bunch of people? Do they need that much skill? Well, I mean, it might even be just too easy with the mass group, formed with the LFR. So yeah, it could happen. Blizzard has said they could form an LFR group to run, well, whatever, any old raid if they wanted to. That the random feature would work to produce that, and they feel it actually would, generate a group. And not surprising, with 8 million players. I mean, there's going to be some number of players, at least at peak times, that would want to maybe queue up and do some of this content. And of course, obviously, we see that on what is it? Looking for Raid, the website. OpenRaid.us, the website, doing very well with getting together pugs, allowing you to look for pugs and join pugs that are doing content that you actually want to do. So really, is the LFR necessary for that? Maybe, maybe not. So it could be related to that. But also, of course, we're also talking about the concept of scaling a lot lately, and that's something they've been talking about for a long time, is how they're developing the concept of scaling to allow players to appear in, well, I guess, simulations of past forms that they might have been. Obviously, the game has changed profoundly since the, from expansion to expansion, patch to patch. Classes are maybe barely even resembling some of the things that they had in the past. So they can only approximate it, maybe. But with the scaling idea, they can basically allow players to go back and be of a similar level that they were, back in the past. And so maybe that combined with some form of old content ability, whether it involves some kind of LFR random grouping, or whether it's content you have to queue for, the scaling aspect may actually allow players to go back to experience old content in a form a little more similar, or a little, maybe give them the feel of what the content might have been like that way, even if maybe you can't go back and totally reproduce exactly what the experience was like. Maybe you can at least go back and get the feel of it. Plus, of course, the players can see the old content in a form that actually feels more real than, running solo through a 25-man instance, which, yeah, as fun as it might be to go in and kill Prince Kael, it doesn't really remind me of what it was like to actually group up, even in Wrath of the Lich King, when we outgeared the content, and actually run it with, a number of people that actually had a chance to die, or losing the encounter. So maybe to go back and just approximate it or get the feeling of it. Now, I know a lot of players might say, well, it won't be the same, it can't be the same, classes have changed, players have changed, they're not the same as they were back then, and that's true. And yeah, maybe that's a good reason to make a knock against that system. But even if they could approximate it or give some feeling of what it might have been like, simulate it, I guess, in a sense, there's going to be some of the 8 million people, or maybe even a lot of them that still appreciate, what they're trying to do, and a chance to go back and experience some of this older content for themselves. Maybe content that was out ever before they even considered, playing World of Warcraft. Like myself, I never got to play Black Temple when it was relevant in any way, shape, or form. So I started in Wrath of the Lich King. So, Black Temple, something I ran with a few pugs and or a few friends, and we hacked our way through, and really didn't give me any kind of feeling of satisfaction. So it's not what it might have been one of my favorite raids isn't. And same with things like Blackwing Lair. I've soloed Blackwing, or no, sorry, not Blackwing Lair. Blackwing Lair I have been through with a couple of people. But Molten Core, one of the most famous of them all, I soloed to that, and yeah, I was proud. I managed to kill, Ragnaros at the end of Molten Core and everything, on my Paladin, which was a really good thrill. But it certainly didn't give me a feeling of what that raid might have been like. And so even to go back and simulate it and get some kind of a feeling of an organized raid group, there's going to be a number of us, especially maybe even some of us bad players, that maybe the new content just doesn't really, isn't really our cup of tea. Chance to go back and feel like maybe we're a raider, just to get that feeling again, or maybe for the first time. So I think the content would make a lot of sense. I mean, there's so much old content that Blizzard could tap into. I mean, why would they not want to go back and bring some of that back to the forefront and give players a chance to experience it again? There's players that want to do all kinds of different play styles. I mean, Blizzard said that, they need something for everybody. There's going to be a good, strong niche of players who would appreciate simulating some of these old raid experiences in scaled-down gear. And, of course, there's a lot of community, as we talked about in a previous vlog, that say, well, let's make an old server or two. The trouble with that is you're changing the content to match the player, and of course, changing the players too. That's a lot of work, and to maintain that is a constant battle because there's going to be people complaining this is off and that is off, To do that, Blizzard have to take a lot of resources to do that, so I don't think we're ever going to see classic servers. However, if they could take the classic content and leave it alone, or roughly as it is, and scale us down to be more, a player that would actually have a challenge in such an environment, wouldn't that be great for a lot of people to actually go back and feel that? So I don't think that's a very good valid argument against the system, is to say, well, why not? It'd be better if we had a full server, because the full server is just not going to happen. It's not a practical idea for Blizzard to try to put that much work into something that once again is really a niche feature. So this feature isn't being a niche feature is really not that as complicated to make, because we already have gear scaling, in certain types of content we have. So it's just a matter of developing it and shaping it to all different areas. And of course, we talk about raids and that, but what about dungeons? Myself, I would love to be able to go back every now and again and go through the Frozen Halls, the 3 dungeons leading into ICC. That was a great experience. I had a lot of fun. That was some of the first really hard dungeons I ever worked my way through. To go back and be able to experience that at max level, I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I know whenever I level a new character, which I'm kind of working on my first allied DK on my server. Now that we can have two different types of DKs on the same server, I'm going to be doing pretty much all the dungeons again, from BC on, because I like to experience them once in a while and see them again. So they could also use it for dungeons, scaling, to allow players to go back and see some of the old dungeons again too, and experience, to a closer level what they might have been like, rather than soloing them or hacking their way through with a buddy, in which case it's really not. It doesn't feel the same as any dungeon ever would have been, originally. I mean, I've soloed Halls of Lightning. That was a lot of fun, but it wasn't anywhere near like the original raid, or like the original dungeon. So it could also apply to dungeons. And finally, one of the other knocks I hear about the whole idea is, well, if there's no rewards, players aren't going to do it. And obviously, if your gear is scaled down, you can't give gear rewards, really, because the scaling would apply to that, too. I mean, of course, there could be transmog pieces. I mean, yeah, any piece you get from there, even though it's out of date and useless to max level, it could be used as a transmog. So it's a good way to go back and see and get some of your favorite gear in a more exciting setting. Of course, though, we can also solo these and get the same pieces of gear. And then, of course, you have the argument of the path of least resistance. So if transmog gear was all it was about, I really don't think that feature would make any sense, because you could just do it solo or with a buddy or whatever, if you're not as strong of a solo player as some of us are. So that wouldn't be enough. So they need to have some kind of a valid reward that makes sense to max level. So, but we have things we all seek after every week. We have the lesser charms that lead into right now Mogu charms, and of course there'll be probably a new a new thing to replace that come 5.4. There's honor. We all, or sorry, not valor. We all work to cap our valor, or to get as much valor as we can with our personal play style. You know, week in, week out. Maybe there's a way we can use that as a way to get honor in supplement of, or instead of some of the other content we're forced to run, or that we say, I wish we didn't have to do every week. So yeah, variety. I mean, isn't that the spice of life? Isn't having variety in the content we can run to get the things that we need to do to progress as a character? So, I mean, isn't that having variety a good thing? So, I mean, that's another area you could feel, is just give people more choices and avenues to do in max level content to progress their character. And maybe it's something that some people prefer to do over dailies or dungeons or LFR or real rating or whatever. It just gives people more choices, more things to do. We can tap into a bigger variety of players and maybe risk losing less subscriptions in the long run. So I can't see it being a bad thing having scaled content, even though not everyone's going to do it. Like Ghost Frost said, some people will say that's the unannounced features. Meh. And that's true. Some players will be like, I'll never run that old content again. I've lived through that. I was bored. I was done with it. But there's still that nostalgic flavor too. Maybe they may run it once. And even if they, and the rest of us maybe try to run it more often because we enjoy it. But it's something that there is a good niche of players. I'm pretty certain that will appreciate it, enjoy it, and say, thank you, Blizzard. You've brought back a lot of exciting content that maybe had faded into the background and will have no real relevance otherwise. And of course, myself, I'm one of the advocates for bringing back Burning Crusade, or the Outland in the new content, the new expansion, if it does involve that part of the storyline. I want to see Outland come back. So I'm an advocate for bringing back old areas, having some reason to go back and experience them again, and that just would bring that back to life, and I think would be a really good asset to the game. So Blizzard, I really hope that's the unannounced feature that you have coming, because I think it just makes the most sense. Just for some of the people that say that the unannounced feature could be player housing, it's true, that is a feature that would add something cool to the game. We talked about it for a long time, but really, why would they choose to do that in the final patch of an expansion? Wouldn't that make more sense to announce at BlizzCon, say, for the new expansion coming out? Why would they do that at the last patch? It just doesn't make any sense, whereas running old content is far more relevant near the end of a tier than it would, or an end of an expansion than would be, as a new expansion feature. So I think it just makes more sense if it is coming in 5.4 that it's more likely to be something related to scaling content than it is player housing, which I hope we're going to see in the next expansion myself, because it's time. It's cool. Players have asked for it for a long time. They've talked about it for a long time. So yeah, that's my speculation and my thought as to what this unannounced feature is going to be. Obviously, with all luck, we're going to find out very soon if that truly is what we have coming. So anyways, as we said, patch 5.4 will hopefully be hitting the PTR in the next month. And if all goes well, cross our fingers, hopefully we will see this unannounced feature right away when it hits the PTR, or very soon after. Hopefully it's developed enough to put into the game and start trying out sooner than later. And like I said, I'm kind of hoping that it is scaled content or scaling and the ability to run a wide variety of old content in a max level setting and get some kind of, hopefully some kind of valid or relevant reward to max game content in the process. So Blizzard, if that's not what you're planning, I know you got me stumped, but I really hope that is, because I think that'll add a lot to the game. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. Once again, my name is Daniel Gagne, Bad Player 03, sometimes known as Realthus Killdog, and this has been another Bad Players WoW Vlog snippet. As always, you can follow me on Twitter, because I love my Twitter, badplayer03, capital B, capital P, under the name Daniel Gagne. I have all these videos up on my YouTube channel, also under badplayer03. You can follow me on Gmail, badplayer03 at gmail.com. Like to get some emails, some feedback, let me know what you think, or what you think my ideas are relevant, off base, that sort of thing. Of course, every now and again I do some live streaming on my Twitch TV channel, also under badplayer03, capital B, capital P, surprise, surprise. That is badplayer03 as well. Mostly old gaming content at this point, because I don't have the full account to be able to do World of Warcraft and that sort of thing at this point. However, I have a rich history of gaming going back all the way to the TRS-80 computer in terms of gaming, and that was my first fantasy role-playing game I ever played back probably in the early 80s, and I've been playing games ever since. The arcade, Commodore 64 computer, Atari 2600, the Nintendo. I've played it all, and I got a vast variety of memory, knowledge, skill from those those kind of games, and that's what I like to do sometimes, is to stream a little bit of that and kind of bring some of the old stuff back to the world. So check me out sometime, or follow me on Twitter, and of course you'll get the notice that I've gone live when I do, because I'm just new in the streaming business, and I have a webcam. I'm using the webcam part of that, so you can see me as I stream and watch me struggle through and have some fun with the content. As always, I try to make everything I do fun and entertaining. So I'm not going to sit there and go, all right, what's next? What's next? That's just not me. I'm a fairly colorful character. Enjoy being fun and lively and that sort of thing. So anyways, look forward to hearing what you think. Bad Player 03 out. We'll catch you guys later.